It is inherent in who we are and the story of our ancestors that we are connected in unity. Now I know it. People are annoying. You don't always want to be with them. We need our alone time. But the Maasai say we are not human unless we're with other humans. Think about it. It's true. We're not. And we have an absolute need to be with humans. We're better together. A book by that title. Long-term studies show that when people are connected, they're 2 to 5 times less likely to be affected by heart disease, dementia, and cancer. 3 biggies, just being connected. I'm not sure what that was, but we do now. We know that when people are connected, they have very powerful immune systems, among other things. And we can measure immune system efficacy and strength now and robustness, and we see this, among other things. There are many we're still learning about all of this. Connections, very, very important. Stamatis here lives on the Greek island, one of the blue zones. And he's 102. And as you can, if you can't read it, it says, it's the wine. I drink it with my friends. But Stamatis' story is even more powerful. He was born here, but moved to the United States. He was actually at Greek Freedom Friday. He was wounded. He jumped on Queen Elizabeth, went over to the U.S., started a life, and raised a family. And around 60, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. His physicians say, you got about a year. I'm always reluctant to do that. It's almost challenging sometimes. So he said, funerals are cheaper in Greece. So I'm going to go back to this island, this blue zone. And he did. For a little while, he stayed in bed. And then he thought he'd go down to the town. The kids he grew up with were there saying, hey, Stamatis, you're back. Let's have a wine. And he would go every day down with them. And then more and more connection. Then he started a vineyard, and he started working. But the big thing was that he was moving a lot more, and he was connected with friends. You get the story? He's still alive. He's 102. Someone asked him, how's your physician feel about that? He says, oh, he's dead. My friend John Spooner says it all. Better to eat fries with friends than broccoli alone. I endorse that fully. That's how powerful it is. Your risks. We talked about your risks. You can't ignore your risks. It's like driving a car with no brakes. You're going to navigate through life with high risks and ignore them? That's nuts. Some people approach health things like an ostrich. They want to hide from them. But again, with colon cancer with me, I pay attention to that. I'm going to be able to, I can say, and I won't die of colon cancer. So it's paying attention. The risks are many. They're like buzzards that are always there. They're up high when you're young, and you get older, they're like a Hitchcock movie. You start taking bites out of it. But whether the risks are self-induced, which is okay, or these are self-induced. Brain food slips, golfing with a grizzly on the green. See that? Anyway, whatever they are, it's paying attention to them, and where we have the ability to lower that risk, I think that is it's not rocket science. That is what we must do. There are other risks. I use this slide when I speak to people who are evaluating where they should live for the next phase of their life. And I use this for a particular purpose. Certainly you don't want to drive with a bad driver. But more importantly, don't let others put you at risk. In other words, don't buy into a societal stereotype that aging is only about decline. All the ageism that Ashton talked about. Don't buy into that. Like Kay talked about. We heard so much of that today. Low expectations, internalized lower expectations are very powerful. They're very powerful in a negative way. And so don't let others, a society, even your children. I tell people the worst thing they can do is consider moving in with their children. If anyone wants to do that, say absolutely not. Our friend Teresa, Kay mentioned it yesterday, there's such a thing as helicopter children. So older adult children hover over their parents and want to eliminate all risk. I won't allow them to grow, blossom. I had a guy who said, we just had a party for my my mother, she had a birthday. We had a nice birthday party out in the backyard. And she was late, and we said, oh, I bet she fell and broke her hip. Well, it's better call the ER, so let's check. They look up, and she comes down in a parachute. She didn't ask her family whether she should do that. Is your age or your spirit in charge? The one I use is never act your age, because to act your age is to buy into this stereotype right here in today's society. So you ask, is it your spirit, what you love, what you want to do, what you always wanted to do? Is that premier in your thoughts and mind and judging and maneuvering and helping you maneuver through life? Or is it your age, a number? You heard I met Chuck Yeager. One day at Edwards Air Force Base, Flight Test Center, he walks into my office for a physical. It's an aviation buff, and the younger people may not know, he's the first one to break the sound barrier. Right stuff, General Yeager. So we do the physical, he's very healthy. He's in his late 50s at the time. I'm in my 30s. And then he just sits there, puts his feet up. He can do anything he wants in my office. He starts talking about his experiences, all those ones we read in the red stuff and some we don't even read about. And I'm just transfixed. Then he gets quiet. And he says, you know what, Doc? He says, I think on the 50th anniversary of breaking the sound barrier, I'm going to do it again. You know what I did? 30 years old, I knew everything. Cocky. I said, Chuck, you'll be 73 years old then. He looked at me and said, what's your point? Beautiful. There's a lesson in aging that I never forgot from the man. He did break it on the 50th, the 55th, the 60th, and the 65th anniversary of breaking the sound barrier. He did it. So, to the extent that we embrace low expectations associated with a number that, why do we retire at 65? Does anyone know? The Germans were the first one to have basically a social security system. And this was the late 19th century. And they had to pick a number when they would pay the benefits. Now, the average life expectancy was 48 then, so they said 65. It was a good safe number. Somehow that got chiseled on a rock somewhere. What does that mean? It's crazy. This one's important, and this has to do with our time-based society and the huge amount of stress that we are all subjected to. We inherited from our ancestors a stress response. You've all heard about it, the fight or flight mechanism. And that was to save us. You're walking down a path, there's a lion jumps out, and you can either fight that guy and be as strong as possible or run like the wind, faster than you could ever. You've done it. You've stepped off a curb. Here comes a truck. Woo! You're right back. You can jump a fence. We see people lift Volkswagens off people who are trapped, and soldiers do things you didn't believe were possible. Because it is a stress response, it is a survival response, it is all hands on deck relative to the body. We shut down systems we don't need, and we concentrate and focus on the ones we do need, heart, muscles. And that's what it's meant to be short term. We, as humans, and only us as humans, have the ability to trigger this with our thoughts, with our chattering minds. I don't know what's happening now. You're sitting there looking at me and saying, God, he's handsome. What's for lunch? Why didn't he wear a tie? Oh, the election. Oh, I don't know what ISIS, or the kids. And we're nuts, it's chattering mind. And we believe we are our mind. Our minds are only tools. We are souls and spirits. This is a tool. And yet it runs the show. And is always ripping us out of this moment. You say, live in the moment. Well, this chattering mind rips us out of that moment. And, we're thinking about to-do lists and everything we haven't done, or relationships. And it just rips us up. It's like flooring the gas and stepping on a brake. Just rips us up. That's all much. That stress that you've been dealing with, I can pretty much guarantee it's self-induced. Really. There are stressful situations. But when faced with a stressful situation, there's only 3 things that you can do. All right? 1, fix it, or make a plan to fix it. Then you have a step. It's like Joe, standing up for commercial. You have a step. You're going to do that. So you're focused on that step. 2, walk away. It's not your problem. Yesterday was National Dog Day, and they had a phrase there. It said, approach life like a dog. If you can't eat it or play with it, pee on it and walk away. Beautiful. And 3, accept it. It is what it is. You know, the election is what it is. All you can do is vote. That's it. You know, ISIS is what it is. There's not much you can do about that. Don't internalize it. Don't throw it in a big bag and carry it around with you and bring it up every now and then. Relationships, bad things that happen. That's self-induced stress. Fix it or plan to fix it. Walk away like the dog, or accept it. That is associated with peace, much better health, because stress accentuates, speeds up our rate of decline for just about every condition, every chronic condition that we face. And it makes life extremely uncomfortable. And it starts early. Okay? Starting early. So life may not be the party you hope for, but while you're here, you might as well dance, right? Purpose. What is it you do, in a sense of what is your life's purpose? What gets you out of bed? This is a good question to ask those you work with. Because sometimes you may get the answer, I'm retired. And if you do, you are in trouble. They're in trouble. What is it you do? Without a purpose, we wither. Mary Oliver, she's a poet that lives on Cape Cod. Did you ever meet her, Connie, or interview her? You did? She's a different kind of woman, but she's a very good poet. She lives in Provincetown. And she has a poem, Summer Day, I believe, and in that is a line. It says, tell me what it is you plan to do with your one wild and precious life. That's a question for, not only for young people, it's a question for all of us, every day. What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Again, if we don't have purpose, we wither. If we don't have purpose, you stop bounding out of bed, okay? It's getting out of bed in the morning, that's enough. You know, it's critical to who we are. And from my experience and from my reading and research, the kind of purposes that do stick and motivate people usually involve other living things. Humans, animals, the environment, you've heard it, we've talked about it. These are things that tend to motivate people in a very substantive way and a very healthy way. Alfie Date is the oldest man in Australia. He's 109 years old. And he gets out of bed every day to knit sweaters for penguins. These penguins have been subjected to oil spills. They preen their feathers, ingest the oil, and die. He knits them sweaters. They can't do that. They live. Plus, they look cool, don't they? That's what Alfie does. It does not have to be grandiose. It does not have to be braggable. It just has to be meaningful to you and to those you work with. Kids, where are the kids? You got to have kids in your life. Our ancient tribes, it was inherent. We were a mixed intergenerational group. Children were the sign that we were going to survive as a species. It was a blessing. Huge. So kids, you know what happens? As we age, we become less, you've heard this, we become less and less connected to children if we don't watch out. Our society will lead us down a road into isolation from other generations. Then we can complain about the millennials, and we can complain about the kids. Again, it leads to isolation, and it leads to higher risk for bad things happening to you. Kids. Kids. And when those kids are so good looking, Jackson, Dylan, Hunter, and Abigail. All right. That was taken yesterday, by the way. So. Are you having fun? Do you laugh? When's the last time you had a good belly laugh? Right here. My job is done. True, and that's why I flavor so much of what I do with laughter, because first of all, it keeps people attentive. It's a pleasant experience, but it's a healthy experience. So laughter, you don't know the story of Norman Cousins? Anatomy of an Illness, he wrote a book. Back in the 70s, he was diagnosed with a terminal disease. They told him probably about a year. So he didn't feel so hot about that. He's in the hospital, and he says, oh boy, but I always feel better when I laugh. So he checked out of the hospital. He got a movie projector, it's in the 70s. got Marx Brothers movies, which he liked, Candid Candor episodes, which he liked, came back to the hospital, started playing this, and he's laughing, and he's laughing. The staff's laughing, because it's a social connector. And he laughed himself into remission for 30 years. He died of another disease. Laughter. We didn't know what the mechanism was, but we do now. Much like social connection, the immune system is extremely powerful in those who have an optimistic view. The centenarian study in New England, what is the most common characteristic of those people? Optimism. What do they have to be optimistic about? They're over 100. But they know things are going to happen. I'll deal with that when it happens. You know, and they face life with an element of joy and happiness and optimism. Now, what happens to us? Life happens. But if something else happens, and it has to do with my aerospace medicine background, most of you think, and I'm usually dealing with even older audiences, most of you think you have a nice neutral expression on your face. But with many of you, what I see is it's gravity. It's gravity working. But the face is a huge window to us. It's a huge communicator, more so than words. 60, some say 70% of communication is nonverbal, and the face is huge. So to walk through life with that kind of face, not intentional, sends a message of, I don't want to talk to anyone, don't bother me, I'm miserable, I'm cranky. You know, don't even come close. I don't want to have anything to do with you. And many times that's not the intent. Hopefully most of the time it's not the intent. So when we go on TV, right, don't they say, you know, think like you have a slight smile on your face and that'll come out as neutral. You feel a little stupid, but you see, you can check it in the mirror. Those are the young ones, you probably don't have to worry so much. But as gravity starts to kick in, you don't want to send a message that's going to isolate you, raise your risk for aging in a worse way. So, laugh. So these are the 4 things I recommend in the book. So for homework, and for those you work with, if you want a nice quick homework, move a little bit more. Remember Heitzen? Move a little bit more. Try something new. Reach out to people. You know, we in New England are really friendly. If you give us 30 years, we'll be your friend. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. But, you know, really, reach out to people. You know, a server, a cashier, waiter, someone you're both better for it. It is who we are. It is in our very DNA. And challenge yourself. Scare yourself every day. Get out of your comfort zone. You know, is bungee jump? Yeah, well, maybe not. But it doesn't have to be. Just do something like my mother. It's a little bit out of the way. And don't accept low expectations. Take a Jaeger effect to your life and those you work with. Don't be on the fence. You know, Yoda in Star Wars says there is no try. There is do or don't do. So it's today, ladies and gentlemen. And it's today with those you deal with. Do or don't do. Don't be on the fence. Because, Van Norman gave me this slide, you'll be like these guys. For those of you who can't read, we have a couple dinosaurs watching the ark sail away, and it says, oh crap, was that today? It is your choice, it is our choice, it is the people you work with, their choice as to which road they take, because lifestyle is the major determinant. That lifestyle is not rocket science. It is how our ancestors lived, and we have to creatively take those traits and bring them back into our lives in this time-based, high-tech, frenetic culture that we're in. We're not going to be hunter-gatherers. I'm not advocating that, but I'm advocating that we recognize what it is to be human and to be healthy, that we receive from our ancestors, and get that into our lives. George Eliot, great. It's never too late to become what you might have been. This is how we used to look at retirement and old age. Comfort and security was everything. But we know now it's not enough. I knew I'd get an awe out of that. And how do we get it? How do we get it? Remember, it's lifestyle. So you're not going to win the lottery unless you buy a ticket. You have to do something. People you work with have to do something. Nudge them into it with Kaizen. Small steps. Build their sense of advocacy, of self-efficacy, of competence and confidence that they can do it. Don't put them in a situation or challenge yourself to something that you're going to fail at. The important thing is that wherever you are, and as you age, that you're in a situation, whatever that is, where you are connected to others and will remain connected to others, where you are active both physically and mentally and stimulated by your peers. We very much reflect the lifestyle characteristics of our social network. If they're overweight, we're usually overweight. If they're smokers, we're usually smokers. So be in a place where people are active, both physically and mentally, and stimulate you. And where you are fulfilled, you have meaning and purpose. You see those around you. And a place that believes that you can grow, where you're going to continue to grow.